I think part of my creative process right now is actually kind of like letting myself be a baby again in my own business.
Welcome to the Creative Current Podcast, a show where I talk with Grammy-nominated musicians, Michelin-star chefs, and other creatives. Not the five-step playbook to success, but honest, personal conversations about what it actually feels like to live a creative life. I'm David Rust, and creativity has shown up for me in the early days of building Lyft, in playing salsa music in Cuba, and in running a hospitality business on farms. Through all of it, creating has taught me some of the most interesting things about myself. So let's go meet some incredible creators and hear what they've discovered about themselves along the way. I'm so excited to have Erin Claire Jones today on the podcast because she is one of the worldwide leaders in human design, and it brings a really unique aspect to creativity. If you're not familiar with human design, it's really a blend of astrology, Kabbalah, the I Ching. And if you're familiar with Enneagram or Myers-Briggs, or you've ever had some type of personality assessment, maybe that's the closest thing I can relate it to. But I met Erin because I did what's called a human design reading with her. And ever since then, I've discovered parts of myself that have unleashed creativity in ways that have been incredibly impactful to me. And so I asked her to come on and get to know her a bit more and talk about her background. She's the founder of the Human Design Blueprint, which has made over 1 million human design charts. So she knows this inside and out. And she's also written what I found to be one of the most practical books on how human design can actually impact your day-to-day life, your relationships, your businesses, whatever you're up to. It's called How Do You Choose? And so let's dive in and get to know her and see where this goes. I so appreciated you responding because really our session has had a huge impact on my life and human design. And
Mm,
um, and it's funny because it feels like it keeps revealing things to me that feel true about myself, but I never would have guessed that they are.
yeah.
And so I just wanted to first say thank you for the reading, and it keeps revealing things for me.
I'm so glad. It's endless. It's funny because like I just got out of a session and I was remembering in our reading we kind of got, I don't know why it stuck out to me so much, but we talked so much about the zest. Do you remember this?
Mm-hmm.
About like your zest for life. And I was like looking at this gate and I have the same gate. And I was talking to this guy and he started all the zest he has. I was like, I wonder if he has the gate. And I was like, he has the gate. And I was like, I remember this from my session with David. So it is funny because like the way we talked about weirdly, our session kind of actually helped me understand that gate in a new way. I feel like you actually gave language to it that I was like, I think that's really what it's about. So,
Beautiful. Well, and I'm
yeah.
excited. I'm going to be signing up soon for your new subscription membership because I want to. It's had such an impact on my life that I want to more deeply understand it because
Yeah.
it keeps coming up in coaching sessions that I'm having with clients, and it would just be such a
Amazing.
great thing to deepen into.
And we're about to launch a new platform that's kind of mind-blowing called Five Types, which is basically like all AI powered, but it is just like allows a you can basically just like look at all the charts. You can be like, these are five charts. Tell me what I should know about the five of us. It's so fun. So
That's
that's
great.
also really cool. And as a coach, it will be so helpful because you can just be like, this is their chart. What should I know about coaching them? And it's just like,
Right.
here it is.
Well, look, I mean, I feel like I could easily nerd out with you on human design for the rest of this call, but
Yeah.
the context of the podcast is it's really about creativity, but what people
Okay.
learn about themselves in the act of building things. Because as somebody
Mm,
who's built companies, products, different things myself, what I noticed over the years was that I was so deeply shaped by the process of building things. Like when I put myself
mm,
to the task of creating something, all these interesting aspects of my being present themselves. And so in that way, I view the act of creating now is more of a self-exploration process, and whatever the product is at the end is this like byproduct that happens to come
yeah.
out.
Hmm.
And so I wanted to reach out to you because I imagine, I mean, and I know that your life is so informed by human design that to start, I would just love to learn like what, if you were to describe your creative process, right? You're clearly building and putting things out in the world. What does that look like for you these days?
You know, it's so funny because when I got into human design, which was almost 11 years ago now, which is crazy, in 2015, it was like so out there and so fringe and nobody knew what it was. And like I was just like part of like helping bring this really weird thing into the mainstream. And like we're still getting there. It has grown so much and it's still nascent. But something I really discovered using my human design is that like I love being on the cutting edge of things. Like I love being kind of the one who's speaking about the totally weird thing that nobody else gets. And I feel like I'm in this new phase of life where the business is doing its own thing and doing something different. And I've actually had a lot of craving, having been teaching the same thing for 11 years, to like be creatively inspired in a different way. And so, and especially like as a mom and just like the book, there were just so many intense things that happen. So I feel like, I don't know if the question was around creative inspiration right now. Is that the question?
Just it, I mean, it could be about creative inspiration now. It was also just about what your creative process is. Like when you, and even if you
Mm,
have a process, but if you just
yeah.
witness yourself building things right now, what does that look like?
Well, I would say that the thing that I'm witnessing, I guess there are two parts of it. The things that I'm witnessing kind of building outside of human design is that I just like, it's so fun learning something new and being pretty bad at it. Like I feel like I'm really finding myself, I'm like gardening for the first time, and like we had like three snap peas, and I was just like, okay, I'm learning, and now I'm like going to all these dance classes and they're like, we're gonna do a performance. Do you want to be in it? And I'm like, yeah, like let me just be in a performance as like a totally amateur dancer. And I'm doing this
Yeah.
psychosomatic training and like learning this new technique. And I don't even think I want to do it at all, but I just like learning it. So I'm like doing these sessions with people in this technique that I actually don't even want to practice, but it's just like it's fun. So I
Yeah.
would say like part of what feels fun to me about like kind of the creative process of learning there is like how fun it is to learn something new and like be kind of bad at it and have it be really awkward and like have it just be confusing and like keep going.
Yeah.
Because when I look back at human design, like I was not good at first. Like I was figuring it out. I was telling people way too many things. I was reading my documents. I had my things. Like I just like I didn't have a flow and it just took like many thousands of sessions and like many years to actually become masterful.
Yeah.
And so I think like, and I think I forgot about the beginning because I've been doing it for so long. So I think something I have appreciated recently is just like how fun and humbling it is to be a beginner.
Yeah.
And then I think with human design, gosh, I loved what you shared maybe before we started recording around how just building something new is like such a revealing process about who we are and all the things. And something I'm discovering now is that AI has changed the world in a really big way, and we have built our business on being a PDF business, which is kind of hysterical now. You know what I mean? Like I was like, people are waiting 6 weeks for their custom PDFs, and like that just kind of like it doesn't matter these days. So I think that like it is fun as an entrepreneur and challenging as an entrepreneur to like continue to evolve. And I think that's probably the hardest part for me. I'm just
Yeah.
like, we found a thing that worked, let's stick with it. But I think something I'm finding now is just really allowing myself to kind of continue to like look at everything with fresh eyes.
Hmm.
Like I don't know what your experience has been building things around like allowing their evolution, but my husband and I were just talking about how like he's so good at letting things evolve and it's a lot harder for me to let them evolve. So I'd
Oh,
say my
interesting.
creative process right now, and you can see it in our designs, he's just like, try it, change, fill, start a new thing. And I'm like, I want to stick with this thing. It's been so great. And so I think part of my creative process right now is actually kind of like letting myself be a baby again in my own business
Mm.
and like not sticking with the things I've always done because I want to do something different and I want to try new ways of doing things. And so I think that I'm like actually kind of trying to find that creative spark in a new, interesting way in my own business. And I think being an amateur at so many other things is actually helping me find it again.
Yeah. Yeah. No, I love this idea of sometimes having things that we do that are not how we make money, but they're these learning opportunities
So
and
fun.
learning platforms. They're like the training ground.
Yeah. Yeah. Even last night I was like brainstorming about the Substack and it's like it has nothing to do with human design. But like I'm just like having been somebody who's built a big community and there's actually something so liberating about building something with no followers
Yeah.
and just being like, I'm just gonna like start something and see if people like it and try something new. And I just feel like, I don't know, I just feel like we gotta like keep that energy throughout whatever it is we do.
Yeah. Well, I mean, on that point, when you started, you mentioned you were a total amateur, as any of us are when we
Yeah.
start something. You
Yeah.
didn't know what you were doing. You were reading from, sort of the scripts and the documents, and then you gained fluidity and like mastery in it.
Yeah. Hmm.
And you've also built quite a following
Yeah.
behind it. And so now it's not, there's an audience and like a
Hmm.
sizable audience.
Yeah.
And how how does that shape your creative process now at all? Like when you're sitting down, you're wondering about the next evolution of the business or how you might change something or evolve beyond PDFs. Do you find it's any different how you are evolving the business now than when you started it?
Yeah. I think it is in I would say a couple ways. Like I think that our business for a long time really relied on me. You know what I mean? It relied on me sitting with everybody, making every blueprint by hand, making little videos, posting every day, like doing all the marketing. And I think I actually kind of lost the stamina for that when I had young kids. And I was like, how do I do this? And also raise a 1-year-old and a 2-year-old.
Yeah.
So I think that and I think that it's actually always been really interesting for us, and you're a fellow projector, so you know this well, but to kind of build a business that doesn't require my constant presence and being out there because being with people is my favorite part of what I do, but doing it all the time is just unsustainable, of course. So I do think that we're in this interesting moment where it's like building a thing based on the decade we've been doing this. So I'm like, all the content I've written and created and courses I've taught that like is actually just so valuable on its own, and it doesn't require me being there every day pushing it and sharing about it and allowing me to kind of just be the spokesperson of it. I would say like that feels like a big, exciting transition. Um, and then I would say another thing that's been really interesting, just kind of on the creativity front, is that I remember when I wrote my book that I looked at I knew all the human design books that were out there because I'd read them all, and they are all amazing, but they're also all textbooks. And I was just like, I just don't think we need another one of these, you know? And so, like, the book that I wrote was a little bit edgy, and like, it was very much telling the story of human design through story, through people's actual life experience, not through what I'd learned from textbooks, but like through how people actually experience being the different types in the realms of parenting and work and friendship. And so like I found it was so interesting to like write that book, and that was so inspiring for me. So I would say like, and again, I don't even know if I'm answering your questions here, but I feel like there is, as I move forward, I think that I'm actually really interested in talking about human design through the lens of like real life experience and not just like the stuff that you can now get on any LLM.
Yeah.
Because like you can get, oh, what is a projector? But I just think it's so much more interesting to be like, but this is like what I've learned about what it really means to be a projector in friendship. And
Yeah.
this is like what it means. So like I'm a mother to a 1-year-old manifester. Like I'm figuring this out. I grew up in a family of manifestors. Like this is just a new thing. So I think I just am more and more inspired to kind of tell the story of human design through actual people.
Yeah. Yeah. Well, and I mean, I was watching a lot of your content recently on that, and I was drawn to it because of that point, which it was so
Mm,
real world tangible. I mean, there was a post in there about, you know, I can't remember the exact title of it, but it was something about like a projector's perspective on like relationships, or a
yeah.
projector's perspective on, building and launching and like what and rest. And so actually on that point, because we're both projectors,
Yeah.
for listeners who aren't that familiar with human design, could you just describe briefly what a projector is?
hmm So there are 5 types in human design. You guys can look yours up for free on humandesignblueprint.com, soon 5types.com. But projectors are one of those types, and they're just 20% of the population. And projectors are just they're very perceptive people and very natural leaders and very sensitive to the world around them. But one of the things that's really important is that projectors are not really here to do consistent doing. We live in a world of a lot of doers, and so much of the energy of projectors is like it ebbs and flows, and we need a lot of space in our days. So it can take a lot of work to kind of decondition from this idea that we've always got to be on, and trust that our gifts extend far beyond how much we're working, how much we're doing, but really kind of our perspective and how we see. I think also as projectors, so many of our big opportunities are meant to come from invitation. So we can put ourselves out there and make the podcast and make the Instagram posts and write the newsletters and share ourselves with the world authentically and big in big ways. But we really are meant to kind of let an invitation be the thing that guides us into what's next. So having somebody be like, hey, you would be amazing at this. Like my introduction to human design was meeting a stranger at a party in New York City, and he was like, you should study human design. And I was like, okay, and it was obviously more of a process and entertaining it, but like that's how it started, so that is actually a very important part of being a projector, is really feeling invited into things and feeling recognized and deeply seen. And I would say part of why that's so important is because we are a minority in the way that we operate. And so being around people that really appreciate our unique way really actually impacts our success in a big way.
Yeah. Well, and I think this is one of the reasons that I've felt so supported by human design is because the way I build as a projector is so counter to, I think, what culture says is the way to build things, and counter to how I
Yeah.
built things for most of my life, right? And was
Yeah.
rewarded for it, right? I helped build different companies, and it rewards you to build in this sort of all in, always on
Yeah.
pushing manner. But
Yeah.
then when I started to learn more about myself and I was like, oh my God, that's not me. And I could so recognize that. But then fear arises around what does that mean? You know, if I need to be
Yeah.
invited, does that mean that I'm just this passive human being who can never
Mm-hmm.
have ideas and manifest them? You know, because I have ebbs and flows of energy, what does that mean? Does that mean I can't push hard enough? But what's interesting
Mm-hmm.
is, I mean, you're a living example of no, you can, if you want to create ideas in the world, you can do so no matter your type.
Yeah,
It's
totally.
just how you approach it. And the more you know
Yeah.
it, the better you can do it.
Right. And it's like, and I think I'm a hustler, you know what I mean? Like I work really hard. I always have. And like I love working hard, but I think being a projector has been like really helped me point that energy in the right direction and also just be more strategic about it. And
Mm.
also know that I'm very prone to overdoing. And so really kind of being aware of that. Like I look at your design as a projector, you're an energy projector. You've actually got a lot of energy as a projector. So like for you, it's not about not having energy, it's about not having consistent energy.
Yeah.
So it's like kind of building in breaks, allowing like the actual energetic bursts to be so much more intense and productive. Um, but I would also just say towards your point around the invitation, because I feel you. It's hard to not hear that you're supposed to be invited and be like, I'm supposed to be passive. Like, how is anything ever going to come to me? And I would say that our job as projectors is to make ourselves visible and let ourselves be seen because people cannot invite us unless they don't see us. This podcast is a great way for you to do that. But to not really work with people intimately unless you feel like you're truly known by them. And like, it's so funny because I feel like there have been so many moments where I've resisted the invitation, where I'm like, I'm just going to put myself out there and pursue the thing. And my book was a great example. I was like, I want to work with this agent, and like she's worked with all my friends. And then this other random agent reached out and I didn't know her at all. And she just made me feel so seen. And I was like, I love you. And I was like, okay, you. And then when I had all these publishers that we talked to, there was one who had reached out before I even wrote a book, was like, can you write a book with us? And like, that was ended up being the perfect publisher for us. So like, it was these moments where I was like trying so hard to push. And yet the people that were meant for me were always the ones that saw me before I reached out to them. So I think there's just something about like the invitation does tend to be like a real clue for us. Have you noticed that at all?
Oh, yeah. Well, and again, I think my understanding of it in myself has shifted from wait for invitations to arise to there's a natural flow of things and tune into it is sort of
Yeah.
how I'm viewing it now, which is I can view that as invitations. I mean, it could be that I get a
Mm-hmm.
random email from somebody. It could be that I hear
Mm-hmm.
something in passing. It could
Mm-hmm.
be that I read something. It could be something that pops up on Instagram. But for
Totally.
some reason, it like hits me in a certain way. And I'm like,
Yeah.
now I pay attention to that. When that happens, I'm like,
Mm-hmm.
notice that because it doesn't always happen. And so those
Mm-hmm.
are how I think about invitations is just something that hits me in a certain way and I just take it seriously.
Yeah, totally. I think that's great. And they don't come all the time. But I also just think it's important to clarify that like there's no part of our human design that's meant to hold us back. It's more just like helps us know how to do things. So it's not that you can't market or that you can't be a CEO or that you can't do a certain thing, but it's like being a projector, knowing you're going to be invited is just going to tell you how to do it in a way that's a little bit more sustainable and ultimately more successful for you.
Yeah. Well, and so as somebody who deeply understands human design, I mean you know your chart inside and out, but I imagine that you still discover new things about yourself every day. And so
Hmm.
how how does that work, right? In some ways it's like, well, human design tells you everything you need to know, but
Yeah.
at the same time it probably doesn't. And how does that show up for you?
I just think that like it's just endless. I think that like, and we've been working on this new platform that I think allows us to look at all these charts in a way that's actually surfaced so many things I hadn't seen before. But I would say that that's what I love about it is that like you can say the same thing over and over again and even read the same thing over and over again and it will like land a little bit differently every time based on where you are in your life. So for example, like, and I'll share about my chart, but like for you, one of the gifts you have is that like you're a creative force. Like you are meant to feel so creatively expressed in your life. And that could be some seasons through the way that you dress, and in other seasons through your podcast, and in other seasons through your garden or through your friendships. Like it just like is meant to keep taking shape. And like as you experience all those different creative expressions, like it's probably going to make more and more sense to you. But like, something I realized honestly yesterday is like there's one type in human design that's really rare and they're called manifestors. It's like 8% of the population, 9%. These are very provocative, intense, innovative, incredible people that are really good at like starting things and they're kind of do well when they have a lot of freedom and autonomy. It's a really rare type. When I was like looking at all the charts of my family yesterday, I was like, my mom is a manifestor, my sister's a manifestor. That's 50% of our family. My dad's sorry, my husband's dad is a manifestor. My husband's brother is a manifestor. My daughter's a manifestor. And I was like, I'm like just surrounded by all the manifestors. And I was just like, oh, this is like so interesting because I'm thinking about my relationship with like the people in my family in a totally different way. So I just think that like there are new insights surfacing daily about me and my daughters and my husband and just like how we navigate and make things happen together. And like I just love it. Like
Yeah.
I think it gives me a framework to look at my daily life in a way that kind of makes things make sense, but also I think in a way that allows me to find a little bit more flow.
Yeah.
You know, it's like it's helpful to know that my 1 year old is a manifestor and doesn't like being told what to do, you know, or like because like yeah, she's one, but like there's such an anger when she stopped and I'm like, "Oh, how can I just give her a little more freedom?" You know, or
Yeah.
how can I give my manifesting generator daughter a few more options because she might not like open-ended questions. Like I just think that it really is the gift that keeps on giving in ways that surprise me.
Well, so I have a 1-year old daughter at home too. And
I
when
forgot
and the
that.
second that she was born, I pulled up her human design because I was like, "Oh, this is fascinating."
Yeah.
And
Remind me her type.
so she is a manifesting generator,
Okay, that's what I thought. Yeah.
but also emotional authority, also 1-3, which is aligned with
Oh, which
me.
is my eldest.
Okay. Yeah.
Yeah.
And so what's interesting is, at least for me, so much of my human design profile has felt like this coming back to who I was when I was born, because that's
Yeah.
all that it's based on, right? It's based on
Yeah.
time, and
Yeah.
location of birth. And so it makes me think, now that I'm a parent, it's like, oh, there's all these ways in which I wished I was treated by people, my bosses, my teachers, my friends, my family. And I'm like, oh, now that I have this chart of my daughter, not that it tells me everything about her, but it's like a guide.
Mhm.
How might I best support her as a parent? And so, how do you approach that with your kids?
You know, it's such a dance because I never want human design to feel like it boxes people in,
For
you know,
sure.
and like in terms of being like, oh, you're this and I have to treat you this way. Like I would say that I'm using it right now as like a very loose lens
Mhm.
and a way to kind of just observe their differences and see how I can better support them. Like I would say, you know, one way that I'm learning to support my 3 year old who's a manifesting generator is like manifesting generators. I don't know if you noticed this in your daughter, are very gut driven. Like it's very instinctual. It's like a physical yes or no that comes with no explanation when it comes to decisions. And we recently put my daughter in this like cool camp experience. And I was like, this is going to be incredible camp. It's amazing. It's whimsical. Like I was in love. And like a week in, my daughter was like, I don't like it. It's like she's like, I don't like the teacher. Like it doesn't make sense for me. And there was like no reason for it. And like it took me a while to actually trust that. And it just kept manifesting until I was like, oh, like this is just not the right space for her. Like we'll take her out. And it was such an interesting dance because I was just like, you know, it's a dance as a parent to know like how much to push and also how much to, you know, listen in those moments. But I think like there's so much in my daughter's design specifically that reveals how gut driven she is, how sensitive she is to physical space, and the space she's in makes all the difference. And so like it was a big lesson for me as like, oh, like I really have to listen in those moments. And she was giving me all the right language to trust that. And so like just listening to kind of that gut instinctual thing that kind of goes beyond reason, you know, that's one piece. And then I would say with my manifestor daughter, manifestors need freedom. And like I remember when my daughter was 2 months old, she started like flipping over, which is really early, and trying to break out of her swaddle and like sleep on her belly. And like apparently they're not supposed to sleep in their belly at that age. And I was like calling the pediatrician, being like, she's on her belly, and she's like, you can't stop her. That's just like inevitable. And it was just so funny where I was like, this girl's gonna do exactly what she wants to do, and I just have to like create the space and give her all the freedom to do it. And so I don't know, like I just feel like there are lots of small ways that I'm watching their designs manifest and like I'm just trying to like step back and see it. But I
Yeah.
would say probably the most useful thing for me is that I don't expect my daughters to be anything like each other,
Mm.
and I'm also not expecting them to be anything like me. You know, I live in my house is four of the five types. We're four people that are designed very differently. And so like I think I'm not walking in and being like, you're gonna want this because I do, or you're gonna want the same kind of, you know, have the same love language as me. Like I'm just assuming they're different. And I think like that's really helpful.
Yeah. Yeah.
Do you notice the gut driven piece in your young one?
Oh, I do.
Even
I
though
mean,
she's
again,
just
she's
one?
she's still very young, right? She's 15
Yeah.
months, but very much so. Like, very, I can tell there's not a lot of like timidness. It's just like boom. Like, I like this, I don't like that, and I just
It's
go
so
for it
simple.
like
But
immediately.
the thing is that gets so conditioned out of them because they get older and they're like, I need a reason for it, or like I should stay in this. And like it's just amazing at such a young age to be like the knowing is so clear and like
Yeah.
they're not worried about like how it's gonna impact everyone else. Like they just know. And so it's such a good reminder for me, like, how can we just like encourage them to keep trusting their instinct and not
Yeah.
like talk them out of it?
Yeah. Well, and as you were talking about family, and now in yours you have four of the five types there, it got me also thinking about, when people are building things, there's oftentimes teams, right? And those teams of people all are going to have different personalities because there's not just the five types, but then there's all these
Yeah.
other characteristics that we haven't talked about. And so, yeah, I'm curious, like, what are some examples where you've seen people use human design in a really effective way to allow a team to work together and actually like leverage each person's
Mm,
characteristics on purpose?
mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. Yeah, I feel like honestly, there's just a lot of friction, whether it's within teams or romantic partnerships or anything, when we just expect someone to be something other than what they are. And like human design just like lets us know how different each person is. Like, I feel like even this week, I was doing a partnership session for these sisters that are business partners, and they run this business together. And one is a manifesting generator, which is like a doer, like your daughter, and one is a projector who like doesn't quite have that same consistent energy, but has such a powerful perspective for leadership and guidance. And it was funny how they were sharing because like the manifesting generator was like, I would get so frustrated when I called my sister and like she wasn't at her desk. Like she just wasn't working the same hours, you know? And then the projector sister was like, I just felt so guilty because I felt like I should be at my desk. And like it was just so wild where I was like, you guys are having a hard time only because you're trying to be the same. And the reality is, like, you guys are an incredible partnership because, like, the manifesting generator was like doing all the time, making the product, and the projector was like out there selling. And they actually were so complementary when they stopped trying to be the same. So, like, that was just one small example of like releasing the guilt for working differently and knowing that, like, trying to work the same would actually probably make them less effective.
Yeah.
And then
And
yeah,
on that point quickly, it's funny because the point around projectors, like, oh, you're not at your desk. I mean, I encounter this
yeah,
sense of guilt in different contexts where, if I'm on a group trip and or we're co-working from somewhere and I'm with a group of people who can witness how I work,
yeah,
oftentimes they'll be like, "Oh, so you're not working right now? Like, let's fill that space." And I'm like, "No, no, no, you don't get it. Like for me, my work day intentionally has huge amounts of open space, and it might not look like
love
I'm
it.
working because it doesn't look like I'm sitting at a desk. It might be that I'm on a hike, but it turns out that in the middle of that hike is when an idea comes in, or it might, and so
I love that.
there's just a bit of, oh wow, imagine if that was allowed through the context of a whole organization where you removed
Yes.
all the shame and the, oh, you shouldn't work that
Yes.
way, how much more would actually get done.
Yes, and I would just say that there were like such simple things. Like I remember sitting with a team of four, and they actually all had very similar designs. But one of the things they all shared was something called single definition, which basically meant that they all did really well working independently and like having their own flow and like minimal meetings. And they sat down and they were all feeling so frustrated because they were like had so many meetings every day and they were trying to be so collaborative. And I was like, you guys, like that's just not how you're operated. Like some of us are meant to do that, but like you guys would probably do well with like one meeting at the top of the week, one meeting at the end of the week, but like really having your own space and kind of the palpable relief that they were like, really? Like it was just so revealing because like they were just trying to like fit this mold of how they thought a business should run and it just was not working for them. And so like it was such a simple shift.
Yeah.
Um, yeah, I mean, I have a thousand examples. It's such a, I think people can feel so relieved in a team setting to be like, I'm so glad everybody else gets to hear that about me because, like, it's sometimes, I think what human design does so beautifully is that it gives us language for things that we already know. Like, we might already sense that we're independent or that we need to be asked questions a certain way, and then human design validates it and then articulates it in a way that you're like, oh, now I can, like, share this with other people in a way that allows them to support me.
Well, and so how do you, when you're going to collaborate with somebody
Yeah.
on something,
Hmm.
how do you approach it now knowing what you know about yourself and your design? Like, how do you set that up so that it's going to support you?
Yeah. Well, I would say, like, I am not. There are some human design people that I think are probably quite rigid around like I need to work with this kind of person and like I'm really not that way. I think that like I just kind of trust my instinct around who I feel drawn to using my design and then once we've decided to work together, collaborate, then I kind of look at our charts and be like how can we best support each other?
Got it. So
You
you just have an
know? And so
intentional
like
conversation about it.
Yeah, and
Yeah.
like and just bringing awareness to it because I really just don't think I don't think human design is meant to tell us like who we should or should not work with or who we should or should not date. I think it lets us know how we can best work with the people that we choose. And I would say probably the things that I know for myself as a projector is that I need to work with people that just make me feel so known, and like and it's just like that is so clear and also like ask me really good questions and where like really appreciate kind of the unique gifts I bring to the table and I'm kind of not expected to do things beyond the scope there. And where I like really get to do the thing that I do best.
Yeah.
And I've experienced partnerships that have really worked when that's the case and partnerships that really have not. When I've been the one pushing and that's not the case. So like it's been such a good learning experience for me.
Yeah. Well, and so one way that's showing up in my life right now, where I feel like there's some edginess to it, so maybe we can explore this a little bit,
Yeah.
is so I'll sometimes have very, intentional conversations with people who I'm collaborating with about our human design profiles, and that all becomes clear. But then when at some point rubber hits the road and it becomes, building time, and my, inspiration energy fluctuates. So like
Yeah.
I'm not the kind of person where I'm going to, deliver it in a certain cadence on a very consistent manner. It's going to come and it's going to go, and I need to have that ebb and flow. But I oftentimes feel then it's difficult to know how to collaborate with somebody, especially if they're like a manifesting generator and they're like, great, I'm just going to map this out. I'm going to crush through it very quickly. And I'm like,
Mhm.
does that mean that that person should do most of the execution and I should stay in more of
Mm,
a visionary role? Or how do you think about that dynamic at play?
totally. Because you also, uh, right, you also want to make sure that everybody feels like they're contributing,
Right. And not being used of like, oh, I'm just saying, because on this profile, I'm not going to work
totally, and
that
not
hard, for
using it as an
example.
excuse.
Right.
Yeah. I think that like, I'm just, peeking at your chart. Um, like I would say probably the biggest thing is that like the biggest thing for you, I would say, is like you have an incredible amount of energy. Like I said, when you are able to kind of work in these really powerful bursts. And so I would kind of like set it up where you feel like you can do that, where it's not like you're like on call and available all the time. You can like really go hard and then rest and then go hard and then rest. And ideally, you're kind of going hard on things that you feel like creatively fun and you actually feel really seen for. I don't think it's like delegating all the work to the manifesting generator because like that's gonna burn them out like crazy. And like as much energy as they have, it's meant to be funneled into things that really excite them. Um, but I think also like it's also important, I think, with anyone working with you that like they're often asking you questions around like, what do you think about this? And what's your perspective on this? And how could we improve this? Because you like have such a knack for seeing all those things. So I think there's something about having that conversation up front and just like trying to be really explicit. And also, like I will say as a projector, like sometimes when we're building things in the early stages, we do have to do more doing. Like that's inevitable. We might have to do things we don't really enjoy. It's not
Yeah.
like we can always start from there. But I still think for you, the most important thing is that you can work in bursts.
Yeah.
Like that's kind of the thing I would say is kind of like number one. And that you also like you're somebody who's very experimental and like to try things and throw things against the wall. So I think also there would have to be an expectation that like your goal is not to get it right on the first try, but to
Yeah.
like have as much space as possible to kind of throw things against the wall and see what works and what doesn't.
Yeah. Yeah. Well, and again,
How does
this
that
is
feel?
where,
Yeah.
I mean, no, it definitely resonates. I mean, especially the piece around being asked questions.
Yes.
Like, I love when that happens. And when somebody's
Yes.
inclined, where their natural inclination is they love to ask good questions. Like, I think most of my close friends are people who ask wonderful questions
Yes.
because I'm just very drawn to that.
Yes.
But we have
Yes.
a lot of reciprocity because I also actually love to ask deep questions. So it
You got the
it
gift for
goes
it.
in
Yeah.
both it goes in both directions.
Yeah. And I would say for you, like you also just you definitely have a susceptibility in your design to overgive and to just like pour so much in and to feel like you're not really receiving much and then burning out. So I think that like I would say that kind of reciprocity piece is actually going to be so essential in any working relationship because like when you feel like you're really receiving well and you're really recognized, you have like an enormous amount of energy to pour into
Yeah.
that thing. So like that kind of has to be very foundational. And that could be
Mm,
money, that could be words, like it could come in so many different forms, but like recognition is the thing that inspires you to show up.
yeah. Yeah.
Yeah.
Well, just as we're approaching towards the end of our time, I'm curious, are there areas where you feel quite creatively blocked these days?
Mm. I would say. I probably would have felt more creatively blocked like 6 months ago when I wasn't doing so many new things. So I'm feeling like juice. I would say probably like I would say the area that I feel, I don't even want to say blocked because I just haven't tried. So maybe that is blocked. Um, I have been writing about human design for 11 years. And so like I am really good at writing about human design. Prior to writing about human design, I liked writing about a lot of other things. I liked writing poetry and other things. So I think that like the block for me feels like kind of opening up the avenue and pathway to like write about other things.
Yeah.
And so that is the piece that feels like a little, and that's part of the Substack that I'm starting. And that's just like, and it's always going to be poetry for me. But like, I remember my aunt passed away in 2021, and I would like wrote a speech for her memorial. And it was such a crazy experience because I was like, I don't know the last time that I wrote a thing that was not about human design. And it was like one of the most, it was meaningful, obviously, in a lot of ways, but there was just like something so revealing to me about that experience that I was like, I can't believe I haven't done that. So I would say I feel blocked in that I have come to really know a certain kind of writing and I am craving expansion beyond that kind of writing.
Yeah. Oh, well, and I'm hearing that you're experiencing expansion in other ways in your life of
Yeah.
gardening and trying a lot of, dance and things that are not
Yeah.
maybe your norm.
Yeah.
What do you think is stopping you from writing about other things?
Mostly because I always have so much to write about for human design, but I think that like I think it's figuring out like what to write about. Like I think that the Substack, I feel like I have clarity around what I want to write about. But I think it's also like I don't know whether you found this, but I think something that I have found, and this is maybe just my own thing, is that I've become known for human design. Like people are like, Erin, human design, you are one, you know? Like, and so, and that's incredible. Like, I love that. And also, like, I think because I've become so known for this one thing, it just feels like a little bit hard to like expand beyond it and be like, yes, this is so much of who I am. And and I'm more than that because I hope all of us are more than that,
Yeah.
And like, and so I think it's because it's been so comfortable and felt so good to be known for this thing that I think expanding beyond that feels a little bit scary.
Mm,
Um, and
I
also
get
because of
that.
like,
Yeah.
and also I think AI makes writing funny these days. Like, and obviously everyone sounds the same. And so
Mm-hmm.
like, it's also just it's funny to also approach writing from this like place of like I really am not writing for like efficiency or like how much content I can create. I want to just like write to write and
Yeah.
like see what happens, which feels like really slow and inconvenient and appealing.
Yeah.
So
I
yeah,
get
no,
that. It's
yeah.
it's interesting because this morning I was listening. The writer Elizabeth Gilbert has this beautiful
Yeah.
Substack called Letters from Love, which is one of my
I should just
favorite.
subscribe. Yeah.
Yeah, it's this practice and now this quite large community of people who write themselves letters from the spirit of unconditional love and the
Mm.
guidance they receive from that. And it's mind blowing. I mean, if you ever want to feel like a connection to something bigger, like go read that. And
Wow.
and she reads her own letters, and of course she's an amazing writer. And her most recent one, I was listening to this morning. She talked about this exact thing you're talking about, where she said
Mm.
she's like, "Oh wow, I'm noticing that I don't want to write right now." And when she was and what does that mean? And when she was talking to the spirit of unconditional love, what it was telling her is that first of all, there's creativity, there's the act of writing, and they are two different things. And then there's also work. And she's like, what I'm realizing is that I had been collapsing creativity, writing, and work into one thing. And in fact,
Mm.
like if you stop writing, in her case, she's like, if I stop writing, it's scary. She's like, I worry I'm gonna lose my creativity. And it's like, no, creativity exists separate from writing. Or in your
Yeah.
case, what was coming to mind is like creativity exists separate from human
Human
design.
design.
And
Yeah.
it exists separate from work and your
Yeah.
business. It just is this thing. But
Mm-hmm.
sometimes, like, I find myself do this. I'm like, oh, it's all one. Like, to me, it's about music and
Mm-hmm.
it's about this other thing. And it's like, no, if I
Mm-hmm.
stopped that, it would show up in another way in my life. And how can I just
Mm-hmm.
trust
Yes.
that creativity can't disappear? It
Mm-hmm.
just can shift and morph.
I love that. And it also feels like expressing it in different ways makes it more interesting, and then you'll kind of bring that back into the other avenues in which you're expressing it.
Exactly.
So I love that. And it is also funny, I think, when it becomes part of our work, because then it's like we can be like, oh, we're doing it here, but like it's different when you're doing a thing just to do a thing versus like this is part of your business and your work and your day to day. And so like I think it's important probably for all of us to create space for those things outside of that whenever, however we can.
Yeah. Ah, well, Erin, I so appreciate you taking the time and that we got this chance to continue this conversation that started as a human design reading. And now, I get to see and learn and discuss all these other aspects. So thank you for that.
Thank you for having me. My pleasure.